I want to show you something. You guys have probably figured this out. If you're watching watching this video, you probably figured it out already. But if you and this really bothered me when I first started talking to the guy that's trying to train us to put our Canvas stuff together. Um, you click on lecture, and this is the screen you get. And I tried to get him, oops, maybe. I tried to get him to tell me how to fix it, and he just kind of hemmed and hawed, didn't say anything. So if you get this screen, one of the things you can do is click on the title up above, and it goes right to YouTube. Let me do that again. See where it is? It's right there. So if you click on that, it goes right to YouTube, and you've got what you're supposed to be looking at. All right. So that's taken care of. Let's go ahead and start with our lectures. There's McLovin. Gangstas. All right, chapter 2. We're going to tackle 2 chapters today, so let's go ahead and get started. Ways of understanding and perceiving the self and others. We need to understand ourselves before we can potentially understand other people. Practitioners must realize that each person constructs reality in their own unique way, and this is called constructivism. Constructivism focuses on how individuals describe their experiences in terms of personal constructs. So the idea that the people are acting the way you want them to act, completely untrue. It just doesn't happen that way. So everybody is unique and everybody has their own way of looking at the world. A personal construct is an explanation of an event or series of events that becomes the lens through which the individual sees the world. These constructs are developed as individuals interpret and give meaning to their experiences. Constructs are not consciously developed. They are just there. And this is how we think of things. Now, the reality may be that somebody from a rural environment has one way of looking at things, and people from an urban environment have a totally different way of looking at things. People in urban environments want to live around other people, and people who live in rural environments don't want to live that close to that many people. Usually, that's the way it works. Social constructivists focus on how relationships, language, and context influence an individual's or a group's interpretation of self, others, and the world. I have no idea. This is the French putting up telephone poles during World War One. Personality is the individual's distinctive qualities, their traits, characteristics, behavior patterns. Personality is a socially constructed idea. So society tells you what your personality is supposed to be and how you're supposed to act. Some of our strongest personality constructs are developed in childhood. These constructs tend to be harder to change because they're based on immature feelings and possibly illogical thoughts and are established by the undeveloped mind as truths. And of course, if a child is abused during their childhood, their truths are going to be different from somebody who wasn't abused as a child. Childhood carryover. Mother, my child is intelligent, handsome, and funny, and the child thinks, yeah, mom says I'm that, and that must be true. A father may say to his child, he is too awkward to play sports, and the son may say, that's true, I am bad at sports. I came in fourth. The mother, no one will love you unless you are thin and beautiful, and the daughter thinks, that's true, I must lose weight and wear lots of makeup to cover up my many flaws. There you go. Parents, people not like us can't be trusted. Children, true, people who are different are dangerous. Parents, you are worthless and will never amount to anything. And the child says, that's true. Why even try? Culture strongly influences words used to describe someone's personality. Minority cultures will sometimes accept the dominant culture's view of themselves as true and use that definition to evaluate themselves. And nothing makes me angrier than somebody living down to their stereotype. My Indian name is Drinks Like a Fish. My Indian name is Crawling Drunk. And of course, that is really, really irritating. To me, it is anyway. The constructivist perspective helps practitioners remember that their view of the world may be different from their client's view. The practitioner needs to remember to work within the client's view of reality. And this, of course, is the crew of the Jersey Shores. And the only ones I know is The Situation. This is the Situation right here. And this is Snooki. And those are the only ones I really know. I never actually watched it, but Snooki's like 4'8" or something. And The Situation got in trouble, tax trouble, and had to go to jail. The only reason I know any of those people. When an individual, family, or group becomes aware of a construct that is unsatisfying or limiting, the individual can develop another meaning for events or experiences and begin to realize change is possible. But the idea is better if it comes from the client. Of course, sometimes a practitioner will have to work with pair bond structures that have very different individual constructs. A husband may believe that a wife should stay home and raise the children. Now, oddly enough, when I first started in psychology, this was the biggest argument in psychology, was should women stay home or should they go out and work? Huge question in the 1970s. Of course, in the 1970s, we didn't have SUVs. Pickup trucks weren't that popular. Cars got, if they got 15 miles to the gallon, they were considered a really good car. Yeah, okay. So a lot of things have changed. Well, his wife might think that she should be able to go out and work, and of course, in today's society, that's not even an argument anymore. Systems theory takes into account the entire system with which an individual interacts. A system is seen as a complex entity within which interactions are as important as the individuals. Rules are established by the family to teach what is expected or permitted by individual family members. The rules help regulate and stabilize how families function as a unit. Changing one part of the family system will result in changing the other parts. If something in the family dynamic changes, like a wife getting a job to help with family finances, the homework distribution will have to change to even out labor. Family systems may be open or closed to various degrees. In a closed family system, the family exists in relative isolation, with communication taking place primarily between the members. Change is avoided, members hold on to established traditions and values. Characteristics of open family systems: willingness to assimilate new information and to engage in ongoing interactions with their environment. The family has no single correct way of doing things. As the family matures, changes are tolerated, supported, and celebrated. In the family system's perspective, practitioners gain an understanding of how interactions within the family system affect clients. Family systems assist clients in identifying reciprocal relationships between their behavior and influences of the systems within which they interact. Clients realize both how someone else's behavior is influencing them and how their behavior is influencing others. The ecological perspective views people and their environment as continuously evolving. The ecological perspective is less concerned with cause and effect and more concerned with the transactions that occur between people and their environment. The ecological perspective was derived from the concepts of biological ecology. This structure enables practitioners and clients to think about the reciprocal relationships between the people and the environment. And of course, this is in Tokyo. You can see how crowded it is. Ecological perspective has three important components. Person-environment fit. Person-environment fit refers to how well a person's needs, goals, and rights mesh with the social and physical environment. Adaptations are the processes people use to sustain or increase the level of fit between themselves and the environment. And life stressors are issues that exceed the resources of an individual to deal with them. In the ecological perspective, behaviors are not seen as dysfunctional or maladaptive. Instead, behavior is viewed as adaptations to improve the fit between the individual and the environment. The strength perspective views all people as having strengths. It focuses on assets clients have developed throughout their lives. The strength is defined as any psychological process that enables a person to think and act in order to benefit himself or herself and society. Strengths are often developed when people struggle with difficulties, traumas, oppression, disappointments, and adversity. Everyone has the capacity to develop new resources, to make positive changes, and to use his or her competencies to solve problems. Strengths perspective invites clients to discover, think about, and figure out how to use their strengths. This is different from traditional counseling because they tend to identify deficits, weaknesses, and problems. When working with individuals, families, groups, or organizations, the practitioner looks for their strengths, identifies their resources, and invites them to focus on possibilities for the future. Resilience is the ability to survive and thrive in the face of overwhelming life challenges. Resilience is a dynamic process that is the outcome of positive adaptation in the face of adversity, stress, or risk. Resilience is not a fixed personality trait or an inborn characteristic. No one is either vulnerable or resilient all the time. Resilience is learned behaviors and patterns of adaptation. Resilience depends on the availability of protective factors. And of course, this is what I wrote my dissertation on. This has become my dissertation has become really popular in the last 6 or 7 months or so. I seem to get an indicator that someone has quoted my dissertation just about every day. It's really kind of interesting. A lot of it comes out of Asia. So I wrote my dissertation on the resilience of a indigenous group in the Northwest. And so I'm thinking that possibly there's the problem in China with the Uyghurs, and that may be the reason that they are quoting my dissertation, because it said that the culture is the most important thing about resilience. It's culture that supports resilience, and of course that's the pattern of adaptation. Risk factors are any influencing factors that can bring or predict negative outcomes on the functioning and overall development of the individual. They can include biological influences, individual influences, family influences, and community influences. And that's what I identified as well. Protective factors are any factors that can exert either direct or indirect influences to buffer the negative effects of risk factors. Protective factors include strengths, capabilities, talents, coping skills, resources, and assets. Resilience represents both a process and the outcome of competent functioning. Resilience as an outcome involves the interplay of risk and protective factors. Resilience as an outcome represents a resultant positive functioning and competence developed when facing adversity. Practitioners using the resilience perspective start with an assessment of the relevant factors and then focus on helping clients build on the resilience that they have developed. This is part of positive psychology. Practitioners focus on helping clients develop a positive outlook on life and self-confidence, maintain, promote, and enhance protective factors, recall successful events in their lives, identify resources, view a mistake as a window of learning, focus on present and future. Empowerment describes the process by which individuals, groups, or communities take control of their circumstances to achieve their goals. Empowerment has an internal as well as an external component. The internal component of empowerment is also called psychological empowerment. Control over motivations, cognitions, personality. Internal empowerment involves the belief that the individual will make competent decisions, solve their problems, achieve their goals, and have a significant impact on the environment. The external component of empowerment includes the tangible knowledge, competencies, skills, information, opportunities, and resources that allow the person to take action and actively advocate change. Empowerment, like resilience, is a process as well as an outcome. New competencies learned from experience leads to new feelings of empowerment. Research shows that the more involved an individual, the stronger the feeling of empowerment. The empowerment perspective allows clients to develop a sense of power and competency as they experience using their skills and knowledge in new and challenging ways. The empowerment perspective helps people discover their strengths, identify their goals, and develop a plan to reach their goals, allowing clients to accept responsibility for change and experience a greater sense of empowerment. The dual perspective views an individual as interacting and adapting to two surrounding systems or environments. The nurturing environment is composed of family, friends, and close associates at school or work. The sustaining environment consists of the people encountered in the wider community and broader society. While most European Americans experience nurturing and sustaining environments as fitting together, other ethnic and racial groups experience a poor fit between them. Individuals in the non-dominant group constantly evaluate disappointments in life to determine whether they are based on one's qualifications or on racism from the dominant culture. Minority members must develop a dual perspective, equating disappointments with the hostility of the broader society. Minority members must constantly shift between the home culture and the dominant culture to choose acceptable behavior in each situation. The dual perspective allows a practitioner to attempt to understand the structural barriers that those in other groups experience. This perspective makes the practitioner aware of the day-to-day challenges minority clients face. And there you go. That is chapter 2. Now let's go to chapter 3. Maybe? There we go. Chapter 3. Values are preferred conceptions of people, outcomes for people, ways of dealing with people. Those are values. Personal values influence your view of the world, your personal and professional philosophies and choices, your view of how people change. Professional values often include principles of respect, self-determination, social justice, and professional integrity. Areas where personal values may conflict with professional values include religion, health, marriage and family, education, role of government, birth and death, and honesty. Ethical codes provide a brief explanation of what can be expected in the interactions between professionals and clients, as well as between professionals and other professionals. Ethical codes contain statements about what the professionals must and must not do. And these are the ethical codes of marriage and family therapy, counseling association, psychiatric nurses association, the APA, the American Psychological Association. That's the one I belong to. There's the Association of Addicted Professions, International Association of Marriage and Family Counselors, social workers, human services. Professional competence includes practicing within the scope of competence based on education, training, professional credentials, and professional experience. One of the most important aspects of professional competence requiring professional self-awareness is cultural competence. Cultural competence is defined as the application of cultural knowledge about individuals and groups of people to the standards, policies, attitudes, and practices of the helping process to result in better outcomes. Confidentiality is vital for information shared by the client with the therapist in the course of treatment. This information is not to be shared with others. Without confidentiality, clients are less likely to disclose sensitive information with the practitioner. Why maintain confidentiality? The potential for clients to experience stigma, moral obligation for helping professionals to follow the ethical standards for a profession, model of acting with discretion and keeping one's word, and legal requirements. With the expansion of technology into all aspects of our lives, communication has become more and more difficult to regulate. Cell phones, fax machines, answering machines, computers, internet sites limit sending confidential material on insecure lines. Boundaries are defined as borders that separate some types of entities, for example, parents, children, systems, clients, service providers, and healthcare workers. In all helping relationships, maintaining appropriate boundaries is an essential part of developing a trusting relationship with a client. Relationship boundaries must be maintained with delicacy. Sexual relationships with clients are forbidden by all professional codes and represent the most common ethical complaints against helping professionals. In one study, 7 to 8% of practitioners reported engaging in sexual intimacy with a client. Sexual relationships can have a seriously negative effect on the client. Cognitive dysfunction, identity and boundary disturbance, sexual confusion, rage and feelings of guilt, depression and emptiness, self-destructive feelings, increased risk of suicide. Touch, accepting gifts, and self-disclosure by professionals are behaviors that have the potential to be boundary violations, depending on the circumstance. More damage can be done by overstepping boundaries than the help previously given. There is a difference between city ethics, rural, small town, reservation, boundary ethics. It is easy for a city practitioner to gravitate in different circles than their clients. In smaller communities, it can be nearly impossible. I used to live in Blaine County, Montana. We had one counselor in that town, and she wanted to date. She needed to date. She wanted to date somebody, and it turned out that just about everybody in the county was one of her clients. So she eventually married one of her clients. She really had no choice because there was hardly anybody else in the county to even talk to. The desire to help the people in the community that you were raised in is strong. When you know the client before trying to help them, you are maintaining a dual relationship and you should try to avoid this. Be aware that if you take on this task, you are possibly in ethical violation. Of course, that would be difficult if you were living in Blaine County where there's only like 5 or 6,000 people in a county the size of Rhode Island. Another challenge during your professional relationship is how much information about yourself you should disclose to the client. Self-disclosure should only be used in best interest of the client, certainly not the practitioner. After the dance is over, after the professional relationship is over, all ethical code strictures are removed. But a practitioner needs to be careful about how much contact they have with an old client to avoid damage due to confusion. The power differential remains. Seeing you out of the professional context may disclose vulnerabilities. It will be difficult to accept this client professionally in the future. Most codes of ethics discuss the following ethical issues related to assessing clients. The assessment procedure or instrument should be within your scope of practice, education, and training. Clients should be fully informed about the procedure and be included in the procedure in a collaborative way. Appropriate instruments or procedures should be selected based on the assessment question. Assessment instruments and procedures used should be standardized and include normative data appropriate for culturally diverse or disabled clients. When administering, scoring, and interpreting instruments, appropriate procedures should be adhered to. Clients should be given a clear and complete explanation of the assessment results. All test and interview data should be kept secure and released only to individuals who are competent in interpreting the data. Informed consent means full disclosure of the purposes, goals, techniques, and procedure rules for assessment and counseling approaches used in language that is understandable to the client. Legal violations are distinct from ethical violations. Ethical challenges are generally brought before a state licensing board but can originate from a professional organization. Legal obligations to clients include duty to care, duty to respect privacy, duty to maintain confidentiality, duty to inform, duty to report, and duty to warn. Legal limits to confidentiality. Confidentiality is not absolute. Laws vary by state. It is important to keep up to date in your own state's laws concerning confidentiality requirements and expectations. And if you live in Arizona, the reality is that New Mexico has different laws, and the same thing with New Mexico. They have different laws in Arizona than you do in New Mexico. Malpractice is defined as negligence in which the professional fails to follow generally accepted standards of the profession, resulting in injury to a client. The client must prove 4 things about the practitioner to recover damages. The practitioner owed the client a duty to conform to a particular standard of conduct. The practitioner had an obligation to follow defined standards of care. The practitioner breached that duty by some act of omission or commission in the professional practice. The client or others suffered measurable damage or injury. The practitioner's conduct was the direct or proximate cause of the damage. The top 5 reasons for malpractice of practitioners in the United States are incorrect treatment, sexual impropriety, breach of confidence, failure to diagnose incorrect diagnosis, suicide of the patient. If a practitioner loses in court, there may be several consequences. They might be fined for damages, punitive for further counseling, loss of licensure, loss of reputation, future difficulties in obtaining malpractice insurance. The court case, whether won or lost, might damage the practitioner financially, emotionally, or professionally. Minimizing the risks of ethical or legal challenges, adhere to up-to-date practice methods, good documentation of practices, maintenance of appropriate boundaries with your clients, no multiple relationships. The following activities may lead to malpractice: sexual relationship with a client, practicing beyond your scope of competency, fraudulent billing, violation of reporting laws, breach of confidentiality, or refusal to provide records. Ethical dilemmas involve making a choice between two or more relevant but contradictory ethical directives, where every alternative results in the same type of undesirable outcome for one or more persons. Damned if you do, no matter which you pick. Reamer in 1995 describes two principles that can guide practitioners in resolving ethical dilemmas. Beneficence, where the practitioner should take action intended to help or benefit others. Non-malfeasance, where the practitioner should act without malice in order to do no harm. Elaine Congress, a social worker, came up with the ethic model of decision-making in 2000. Examine all the relevant client, personal, agency, professional, and societal values, including personal, societal, cultural, agency, client, and professional values. Think about ethical standards of your professional code of ethics and relevant laws. Hypothesize about all the possible consequences of different decisions. Identify all who might benefit and all who might be harmed. It is often necessary to research potential consequences of possible decisions on all those involved. Consult with supervisors and colleagues as you begin to formulate choices. When a supervisor, colleague, or consultant is involved, the final decision must take their thoughts into consideration. And that is it. So I'll talk to you guys next week.